understanding is crucial in mental development. Like very. If you know a lot of things, it doesn't really matter if you don't have a deep understanding on all of them. That's what makes you a philosophical thinker, or just a thinker for that matter. Shalom everyone, my name is Nakaraya. Today we're going to be discussing the importance of understanding. I'll do my best to articulate this here. Knowledge is pretty much nothing without understanding. If you read something, if you read a passage or a book, whatever you're reading, and you're not able to comprehend it, in other words, you are not able to break down what the meaning of whatever you were able to read was, then what good was it to you, right? That's just knowing, so to speak. And the thing that's really, really important about understanding is you need knowledge and understanding in order to effectively teach someone something. Like fighting, for example. It's good to know how to fight and how to defend yourself effectively. But ever since I was a boy, my father taught me that you don't truly know something, or understand for that matter, until you're able to effectively teach it to someone else. And so that's the amount of depth that you should be trying to get understanding on. It's like, okay, well, I'm learning something new. Does this make sense to me? And then, if this does make sense to me, how would I articulate it and elucidate it for someone else? Because that's when you gain a lot of power. What good is all this information that's within you if you are not able to share its value with other people, that you can impact and influence their lives in a positive and moral way? That's where understanding really kicks in. And I'm going to break my whole philosophy on the big three, which is knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, in a later video. But you see, knowledge, it's a lot like hearing, right? But often, again, what's dangerous with knowledge, or not necessarily knowledge, but your intake on knowledge, is sometimes it can be in one ear and out the other. And that's especially if the knowledge is crucial, because oftentimes knowledge can save people's lives if you have the understanding and the wisdom to effectively do so. But understanding is a lot like sight. See, with sight, you get clarity on things. And you can often find this in figurative or metaphoric language, right? If you are a student and your teacher is explaining something to the class that you don't quite understand, whether you raise your hand during the class or after the class is up to you. But eventually, you're going to pull your teacher to the side and say, hey, I'm not too clear on this. Can you articulate this for me in some other way so that way I can understand, right? And then they successfully do so, and now you're like, I see now. Now I have the epiphany. That's what understanding is. Understanding makes you very flexible and adaptable, just like water, hence the thumbnail, right? And this is a little nerd insight Guantanamo that you can see from my perspective when I make the thumbnails. So for knowledge, if you notice, the background is a library shelf, so it's a whole lot of books, right? And then the actual word knowledge is on there. And I chose a font that was very just straightforward, no nonsense, just plainly knowledge, right? Just, there's a word for it. I don't know. But with that font, it influences the idea of structural integrity, right? Now, with this thumbnail, understanding, it has the fonts. I wanted to choose a font that was a little more like someone's actual penmanship. And the reason why is often you can have 10 people learning one thing, and then you'll have each one of those people articulate what they've learned, and they'll all sound different, you know, and it's based off of what they understand. often with your understanding, you link it to things that you've personally gone through in the past. You know, I'm actually helping my client who's in this classroom, and they were doing a science experiment. And what was awesome about, and the science teacher, he's so brilliant in how he broke this down. The experiment was, he broke the class up into two, and it was like he was going to read out words. It was like, okay, who can memorize, or which side of the room can memorize more words, based off of a question that was proposed to two different sides of the room. So the other half, or one half, said, write down word, or I'm sorry, it was yes or no. Put yes or no if the word has E or G in it. And then the other side was, is the word pleasant, yes or no? And so the thing about it is, obviously the latter group was more successful in remembering more words than the other group, because you have to think about, yes, the definition of pleasant, but you have to think about how you understand pleasant and how that applies to you and your own personal experiences. And then you think about the word, and if it matches that, then you retain it. You think about it more. When you think about it, it's the depth that gives you that real insight, that real pure understanding on said subject. And by proxy, remember it more. And that's how powerful analogies are. Analogies are a really good example on how it plays on your ability to comprehend and understand. If you are learning something that you have no clue about, this is the unknown for you, and you have to learn about it. What an analogy does is it says, okay, I'm going to explain something that you don't yet know to something that you do know. So what's an analogy? What's an analogy? I'd like to think of one that the Messiah used. So Christ uses the analogy of him being the shepherd and us being his sheep in his flock, right? And then he draws, other things into it, like the thief, and the sheep know his voice, and the sheep don't know the thief's voice, and so they'll run away from such a man, and they'll follow, the shepherd, which will be Christ. And so, if you don't understand the basics of, how certain people will follow Christ, you can now think of how sheep follow the shepherd. Something that you already know and understand, you link it into something that you don't know or understand. That way, when you think about that, you just link it up. That's how neurons work, right? So, and that's a big rabbit hole on how understanding works as well. If you think about the word energy, for example, what does that make you think of? Someone might say cars. Okay, and then what do cars make you think of? And someone might say Disney, like Disney Cars. It's a very good movie, by the way. And then so on and so on and so on. Everything connects with each other, and that's what tends to happen with people who are really, really intelligent, when they teach on certain things and they're able to touch on so many different things that don't seem to have any correlation, but they relate it beautifully within a very nice segue, and it hits smack on the nail in whatever they're teaching. So that's the importance of understanding. That's probably going to wrap it up here. Understanding, it's so important, far more important than knowledge, in my opinion. And the thing that's so beautiful about understanding this, I'll make this the concluding point, is you can be a very prideful person, and if you're a very prideful person, a very easy way to eliminate that is gaining more understanding. Understanding leads to humility, right? Someone thinks that he's a good fighter until he gets laid out. And once he's laid out, now he understands, like, wow, there's always going to be someone better than you. And that will humble you really quickly. And then, because of that experience, you'll be able to teach that to someone else. And hopefully they'll listen to your lesson. Always be open to understanding something more and more and more. And it is also worth noting that the scriptures say to lean not unto your own understanding. And with leaning not unto your own understanding, the very next part of that scripture is to acknowledge the Most High in all of your ways. And I think that's a very healthy assignment for everyone for the rest of their lives, which is to acknowledge the Most High in all of your ways. Why? So He will direct your path. That's when you're not leaning to your own understanding. Because it's like, man, I have these bills, I have this car note, I have this, I have that. I'm worrisome, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of this. I guess I'll have to just do this, and you've already failed. First thing that you have to do is prayer. Cast all of your cares unto the Most High. That'll really help. Because now you know that He knows, even though He already knew, right? You're sharing it with Him, you're following instructions, and you're trusting in Him. And the only reason you trust is because you understand that none who has sincerely put their faith in the Most High have ever been forsaken. That's understanding. And the beautiful thing about understanding is on the opposite side of the coin, and sometimes it's hard to tell the opposite side of the coin, you have wisdom. So that's going to wrap up this video. Hope you guys got some good counsel from this. I want you guys to stay safe, stay dangerous, and be wise. Shalom.